Welcome to Pulse of Culture. I'm Karolina Shapland, and we're here today in Gdańsk in the Solidarity Center talking to Konrad Knoch, an educator and a historian. Thank you so much for talking to us. So Konrad, today, like every day in this institution, you are absolutely filled to the rafters with young people. What do you think draws them to your museum, to your education center?
Young people are attracted to the European Solidarity Center by its close history. It's the history and recent history of their parents, grandparents, and what young people are interested in is what's close to them. So it seems to me that this is the first essential thing. The second thing is that this is such a history of our great victory, a history of great pride, a peaceful revolution without violence, where they can just pick up some important lessons too. How adults, but also young people, should live, get along with each other, form a community, and create great slogans and implement slogans like solidarity.
And your museum creates this really positive myth of solidarity, a myth that, we all as Poles could feel proud of. How do you do it? What are your museum tricks of the trade? How do you do it?
We show, first and foremost in this exhibition, the people who led to this success. We show the faces of success, but we also show the historical places of this success, such as the great Gdańsk Shipyard, where the European Solidarity Center is located, because this historic strike is a historic event that led to this peaceful uprising. It started right here. So you have to show places and people. That's the most important thing, to appreciate these two important things.
Well, you say people and places, but you show it through a very modern, very interactive way. And what drew me in are those tangible artifacts, such as and these objects are pretty big. What is your favorite object?
At the exhibition, we show a lot of objects related to this very place, the shipyard. And we have a beautiful, huge overhead crane where Anna Valentinowicz worked, who was an activist in the opposition free trade unions, which were illegal in the face of the communist authorities, and who came up with the idea of fighting communism through independent trade union activity. This crane of Anna Valentinowicz is located here. There's also the battery-powered cart that Lech Wałęsa drove, who repaired such carts, who perfected these carts, because he's probably one of the most famous electricians in the world. So these are two symbolic big objects. And these objects, side by side, are on display, and you can see them, and you can feel them. And you can also enter both the cart and the gantry.
And apart from these big symbolic objects, there are also smaller objects, such as Wałęsa's very polyester jersey, that not only have a part in history, but part in culture. What is this object, and are there any other objects like that?
One of my favorite objects in the room dedicated to the democratic opposition, dedicated to communism, is Ludwik Piernicki's jacket. And this was a young shipyard worker who died in the tragic events of December 1970, when the authorities raised prices. Young workers revolted, especially here on the coast, in the Tri-City, in Gdańsk, Gdynia, and Szczecin. And this jacket is a cool leather jacket, showing a cool young man who wanted to live normally, wanted to probably listen to cool rock music, wanted to dress cool, like his colleagues around the world. But it was not given to him to continue to survive. As a young shipbuilder, as a young worker, he died. And in this jacket is a very cool combination of something so universal, but something that is so close to us, because in this jacket was found an ID card and an honorary blood donor card. Because this young man donated blood with such a motto, "Donate blood is the highest humanitarian act," testifying to great social solidarity. And a medallion with the Virgin Mary was also found, which the Mother of God and the Church is part of our history, part especially of our recent history. So in this jacket is such a favorite exhibit of mine, because in this jacket is contained all this exhibition. That is, here's this young man who wants to live a normal life, cool, listening to good music. And on the other hand, there's a reference to our tradition, to our culture. There is the word solidarity. And this young man also shows something great. He donates blood. He's an honorary blood donor.
It's hard to avoid the more, tragic part of the Polish history, as you said in the story of the young man who did die, who did give his life to freedom. So how do you keep the balance of the tragic and the uplifting? How do you make sure that young people who leave your amazing museum feel uplifted and feel, well, that was something amazing about the solidarity movement?
On the one hand, we show the victims, we show the tragic events, but on the other hand, we show some very positive events. We show the people of the democratic opposition, who in the 1970s organized, met, talked. You can say, in our language, they plotted against the communist authorities, published newspapers, published books. They talk about the so-called paper revolution. That is, we don't want to shoot. We don't want rifles, but we want to fight the system with paper. So we show such positive enclaves of freedom, where young people, because these were often students, people in their 20s, who fought communism in this way. So we show positive attitudes. We also show how solidarity is formed, how it becomes a movement of 10 million people, how it embraces all spheres of culture, students, farmers, artisans, how here is a big convention in the Olivia Hall, where all solidarity representatives come together, where they discuss, vote. Solidarity is a great school of democracy, such a lesson in civil society. And I think this exhibition for young people is such an important lesson of civil society, how to change reality, change Poland in a democratic, civic way. And this lesson here, certainly important, they will take away.
Well, apart from Lech Wałęsa, who is known throughout the world, there were, as you said, many other opposition leaders, many of them forgotten, but those who are not forgotten now over those 36 years, there are so many narratives around them, some positives and some are, searching what were their true motives. How do you keep that story, nuanced, but understandable?
The exhibition is very simply prepared narratively, and we have simple texts, we have a special methodology for preparing this exhibition, so that they're simple, understandable. We have an audio guide, which is already, I can't remember, in a dozen languages. There's a 90-minute track, an hour track, a children's track. Anyone from any part of the world can listen to this narrative in a simple, clear, understandable way, and this makes it very accessible. Our audio guide is included in the ticket price, so everyone automatically coming to us gets a narration. And people expect such a narration, because very often they have 2 hours or an hour, and they rush. They want to understand the story in a clear, simple way. And this audio guide helps a lot with that. We have these readers hidden in the exhibition, where you can automatically move around, and it automatically starts up and automatically translates. And we actually see that more than 90% of visitors download this audio guide and use these modern technologies. And they actually work. People today kind of like such podcasts or radio dramas, very much like to listen to this narrative and give themselves away. And by walking around, listening, they give themselves away. They give themselves away to the exhibition. They savor, you can say, the image, which is the scenery, the objects, and they walk around in such a listening experience.
And you, as a very young institution, a very, very young museum, obviously you're very current in the way you're displaying those objects, but over the course of a decade, the narrative around solidarity and around freedom fighting has changed. Now to include minorities, to include women, the famous forgotten half of the 10 million. Are you addressing those different strands?
The exhibition is about history, so these threads are not in the exhibition. Well, because in the history of solidarity, they simply weren't there. The ECS, on the other hand, has this motto: know the history, decide the future. We come to the exhibition, we look at what is here. We walk around the shipyard, the former Gdańsk Shipyard, that is. We learn about history and think about how this history can affect the future, or what's happening now at the European Solidarity Center. There are a lot of events taking place that are related to minorities, to sex, for example, but also there are Dominican dialogues touching on church values. We're open to everyone, to all backgrounds, as long as the idea is not exclusionary, it's not racist, it does not offend anyone. It fits within our statute, and people want to discuss wise, important things for Poland and the world. We're the ones who invite them, and this invitation is always open, so meetings on current current issues, today's issues, are also held here. Often, solidarity is an inspiration. It's an important point of reference, but we break away from it a bit and discuss what's important today, also for young people, because such young people's meetings are also held.
And if I want to take my headphones off and just wander through the gallery in this massive, massive building, searching more for cultural references, the movies, the design, the posters, where would you advise me to go?
Probably the best room, the most interesting room from my point of view, is the room dedicated to the Gdańsk Shipyard strike in August of 1980. We specifically start the exhibition with this room. We don't start the exhibition with what was before the strike. We don't present the history of the People's Republic and the opposition. That will be in the next room in a moment. But first, we want to show this most important moment, this most important event in our most recent history. And I think that's such a very interesting element of this room. In addition to the objects we talked about, Anna Valentinovich's overhead crane, in addition to the battery cart, in addition to the shipyard gates and various other elements of the Gdańsk Shipyard. At the end of this room is a screen where we show a film of the negotiations between the strikers of the Gdańsk Shipyard and the delegates who came to the shipyard from all over the province and even the country, and the government delegation, representatives of the communist governments. And we show this film, these negotiations, and most importantly, I don't want to give away the ending of the film, but there's that famous symbolic scene with Lech Wałęsa speaking at the gate. And this film, very short, because every room there's a short film, that's very important. This film attracts a lot of attention. People stop, listen, and this film moves them. The elderly sometimes cry. They recall this scene. Some were at that gate, participated in that strike, either as witnesses or as heroes. And indeed, there is this emotion, there's this focus. And this film very much works, and it reminds us that the most important moment when we co-created, when we got along, not quarreled, when we made an agreement, and when solidarity was established. I think this is such a very important moment of this room, such a focus, and learning about this important moment is important in our recent history.
And a lot of those values that you're referring to, that moment when us as Poles were all together, united, fighting for something that was so obviously and so clearly good, a lot of these emotions are kind of embodied in the graphic form of the name Solidarity, Solidaryca. Now that's something that's known to Poles, but I'm sure our viewers would be really interested in the history of that iconic Solidarity logo.
The author of the logotype for the word solidarity, Jerzy Janiszewski, a graphic designer here in Gdańsk, was such a close observer of what was happening. Even during the strike, the word solidarity appeared. There was a strike news bulletin called Solidarność. The word solidarity was written on the walls. It was a solidarity strike because it turned from a strike in the Gdańsk Shipyard into a nationwide strike. All of Poland stood up. Everyone went on strike. So it was a solidarity strike. Jerzy Janiszewski observed it. He observed people standing at the gate. He watched the emotions that were happening, what was being written on the walls. Well, one day at night with friends, but also alone, and he wrote the word a little bit offhand in a graffiti-like manner, precisely, a little bit like on the walls. These letters come together. They're side by side, and just like the people who were on strike. They were side by side. Then the flag was added to this logotype so that it took on a more just universal character. The words of this solidarity expressed what is happening between people, but also what's happening in the country, in Poland.
And that iconic solidarity logo still functions right now. How is it used?
Jerzy Janiszewski, in cooperation with us too, because he's the author of this logo, is transforming this logo today. And it's one of the most interesting transformations. It's the word Ukraine in Ukrainian, which is written in yellow with a Solidaryca on a blue background. You can also see the Ukrainian Solidaryca today at the European Solidarity Center.
Konrad Knoch, thank you so much for this interview. And I was talking to Konrad Knoch here in the European Solidarity Museum and Educational Center about not just the history of the Solidarity movement, but about its present resonance. For TVP World, I'm Karolina Shapland.